Seeing none, go ahead and vote.
Pass unanimously.
Recommendation 4A, consideration of an action on a recommendation to the mayor and members of city council on a proposed rezoning of approximately 4.80 acres from standard single-family residential R1 to planned development PD district, final development plan for the existing Grants Lake Tempos Section 2 townhome community located at the intersection of Grants Lake Boulevard and State Highway 6. Laura.
Good evening. So a little bit of an odd follow-up to this. We did originally have the public hearing in February. That was February 27th. So it has been a little while. So I will take you all through this one more time. If you might recall, in 2018, there was a fire in Section 1 of Grants Lake, or Building 24. And in order to rebuild that portion of the townhome community, they did have to get building permits. And in that process, they discovered it was incorrectly zoned as single family standard. So we did take through Section 1 and got it successfully rezoned towards the fall of last year. So we have started moving forward with doing research and creating documents and continuing and moving forward with the PD process for this second section. So in the map, you'll see in green, that is the Section 1 that was successfully rezoned. In black, that is the section we're talking about now. So this is a section that does back up directly to State Highway 6. It's about 4.8 acres. There are 51 units in 11 buildings. This was originally platted in 1982 and was then annexed in 1991, fully developed. But again, it was annexed improperly as R1. So the city has initiated this PD to rezone it more appropriately. Next slide. This is just an aerial map, so you can see a little bit better kind of what the area looks like. So it's you can see more townhomes across the street, Grants Lake to the south, that's Section 1. To the southwest, there are some condos. Directly to the west, you can see some single family homes. And then Highway 6, of course, is the large arterial highway there across the back. Next slide. So this proposed rezoning replaces the incompatible existing zoning, which is R1, for the entire 4.8 acre complex. It doesn't alter original development or any deed restrictions. It just provides a path forward if there's any future repair or reconstruction needed for this area. Our recommendations are based on analysis from the plat, field investigations, several visits, and many pictures taken at the site as to the actual layout, design, and the development that does exist. And this PD category was recommended in order to closely match up with what exists. Next slide. So just to give y'all a little bit of background, because a couple of you haven't seen this before, to create these exhibits, I did actually overlay lines that were drawn from the plat with aerial images, and then traced in quite a few of the unit divisions and some sidewalks, as well as the pathways and some locations of signs and different walls. So all of this was taken from the existing plat that was platted in 1982. So they are to scale drawings based on that plat and the existing features that are out there currently. Next slide. So this is that plat that I was talking about, 1982, the recorded plat. It has 54 units in 11 buildings, and this plat is being added to the FDP as Exhibit C. Next slide. So this is just a zoom in with a little bit more information. There is a large amount of common area that includes parking, drive aisles, quite a bit of green space there in the middle, as well as 2 points of ingress and egress. Next slide. So I'm going to take you through some of the pictures of what is existing. These are primarily taken from around that drive aisle, but there are a couple pictures that do look in towards the middle, so you can see what that interior green space really does look like. So here on the left, you can see one of the walkways there through the middle between two of the buildings, as well as the pedestrian sized and pedestrian scale lighting. Then on the right, you can see some of what the covered parking looks like there along the edges of the townhomes. Next slide. Here on the left, you can see that where there isn't covered parking or a building that backs up, that the parking is directly facing, there is a full hedge covering. So landscaping and hedges do buffer all of the parking areas from the interior green space. So there's either a building or a full hedge screening any of the parking from the interior green space areas. Next slide. Here you can see the back of a building type that is unique to Section 2. In Section 1, every building had 2 rows of townhomes, whereas there are 3 buildings in Section 2 that do not have back sides to them. The back is just the flat with a couple of windows rather than having another row of units. So this is something that we did want to make sure was documented properly so that we know how to move forward with any renovation or repair in the future if necessary. There's also a small HOA notice board as well as mailboxes for the units that are at the back of this Section 2 property that was not in Section 1. So we did want to make sure that those images were included in this FDP as well. Next slide. And then these are the types of fences. So there is a 10-foot masonry fence as well as 6-foot wooden fences. The masonry fence is the sound barrier along Highway 6 with the rest of the perimeter being done with wood fencing. Next slide. So here you can see the site plan layout. It includes location of the units, open parking versus covered parking, drive aisles. It also has refuse and property lines on it, as well as fencing. There is one small error here on the site plan. If you look carefully in the legend, it says that there's an 8-foot masonry buffer fence. That is actually an error. It should be 10 feet, and it's noted at 10 feet in the report. This document has already been updated on the servers that we have here at the city for going forward, but this was caught just today, so that's why the PowerPoint is still a little bit outdated. But that's been corrected already. So if you can go to the next slide. This next slide is the landscape and pedestrian circulation. It has a location, types, and sizes of trees, including existing hedges, protected hardwoods, ornamental, and then has the differences in the 4-foot concrete internal private sidewalks versus the 5-foot public sidewalk along Grants Lake. And again, the property line and unit layout as well. Next slide. These are the exterior elevations. These were taken directly from Section 1. They are based on building number 24 for Section 1, which is the building that would have to be, that is under repair right now. It is predominantly brick on the first floor and siding on the second floor with the maximum height around 30 feet. And this style and material is throughout both sections, Section 1 and Section 2. So this does account for both sections. Next slide. Then here we have the ends of each of the sections, as well as the picture of the back of the building that is unique to this section, with special notes that this building, as well as the other 2, I believe it's buildings number 1 and 7, will need to be following the feeling of what you get in this picture, which is primarily fiber reinforced cement siding on the second floor and brick veneer around the bottom and windows made of glass. We've also included the special note here on for both of the exterior elevations. On the slide previously, there's just an asterisk that says see the note on the second sheet. These north, south, east, and west directions relate specifically to Section 1, Building 24, and there is a chart included that does denote each direction according to which building it is matching up to. So that does also was taken, the wording taken almost word for word from Section 1, so we are trying to maintain that consistency throughout the entire, both sections. Next slide. And this is the plant list. It was customized based on observations in sections 1 and 2, includes shade trees, small and ornamental trees, as well as shrubs. Next slide. This is the future land use map that does include Grants Lake Tempo Section 2. It is part of the medium density mixed use area, just like Section 1 and some of the condos and other apartments that are nearby. So this does match up with the future land use plan. Next slide. So a little recap from our previous meeting, February 27th, there were no speakers present. There were not very many questions asked. The main direction was to move forward with the item for consideration and action. We did add the note and the chart to the elevation sheets that I mentioned in order to more closely match up with what was provided for Section 1 for the sake of consistency. And staff has not received any inquiries or comments since the time of that last meeting. Next slide. So the points for consideration this evening, there are unique features, including layout, internal sidewalks, and green space that staff believed that R13, which is our standard townhome zoning, was not appropriate for this site. So we did move forward with the plan development. The rezoning is designed to match up with the existing development rather than to create parameters to build a new development. And it does match up with the platting as well. We did create the base site plan layout based on the plat, aerial images, and field investigations, and we did document existing conditions and features that were codified in the PD, and the comprehensive plan does support this zoning recommendation. Next slide. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of the recommendation to the mayor and city council for the rezoning of Grants Lake Tempo Section 2. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. I will start. I'm going to just kind of go down the line like we do at many of our meetings to see if anyone has any questions for Laura. Suzanne Watley, you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a comment and a question. First of all, Laura, that's a very thorough job. Thank you for doing so much information. I drove by there today and everything looks to be in good shape. So will the zoning updates trigger any of the residents to make any changes? I know you said it's grandfathered per se. Will anybody have to make any changes because of the zoning update?
No, the only thing that would change is future reconstruction. So if they wanted to add something, or if they wanted to fix something, or if they made any kind of remodel or changes, they would have to bring it up to the current city standards and follow whatever is written in this PD.
Good, because I just didn't want the homeowners to have to go under that were questionable disrepair, having somebody come in and all of a sudden under this PD point out those disrepairs and having them to make them all of a sudden.
No, that is not the case.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Andy, do you have any questions?
I don't, and fantastic job. Thank you for putting this together during these crazy times. But no, I have nothing else to add.
Okay, great. Matt? Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I want to compliment you, Laura, and city staff on putting together a really great proposal, very comprehensive and detailed with pictures. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Great. Dan?
Yeah, I have one small question on Exhibit F2, the very last sentence in the very last note. It says fiber reinforced cement siding products may be used in place of wood siding. Wasn't it determined that the buildings have cement board siding? So it seems odd that we would be allowing fiber reinforced cement siding in lieu of wood siding. It's just confusing. maybe the
So
note.
that language was taken directly from section 1, and I suppose we can alter that if we need to. Doug, do you want to?
This is Doug. Good evening, Commissioners, Madam Chair. There's quite a bit of wood siding on the units. There appears to have been some repair over the years in a few cases, but they're predominantly wood.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
And I think the idea was that if they did want to replace it or upgrade to like hardy plank or something to make allowance for that, was that not the
Yes,
thought?
we just did not want them to use wood going forward in the future. We would rather them use the fiber reinforcement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, AP, any questions?
No questions, but just to echo my colleagues, great job. And it's good to see everyone's faces after such a long time and everyone doing well, hopefully. So that was a great job.
Okay, great. Taylor, do you have any questions?
And I'm all good here. Thank you.
Okay, and let me see, Carl. Oh, Jay, I left Jay out. Hang on, Carl. Jay, do you have any questions?
You're muted, Jay.
Unmute, Jay. Can't hear you, Jay.
Jay, you're on mute.
In the lower left-hand corner. There you go.
Yeah.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. I was using the phone. My question, Laura, concerns the sound barrier wall.
Yes.
Typically, those are built and owned by TxDOT within the right-of-way, so I was kind of surprised to see that go across the property. Do you know if the homeowners own that sound barrier wall?
Yes.
They do?
Well, it was built in coordination with First Colony, the Grants Lake HOA, and TxDOT, but the Grants Lake HOA is the current owner of it.
Okay, and so they're responsible for maintenance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question, while I was looking at the right-of-way on 6, and I'm not sure if this is an issue or not, but there was a right-of-way taking at the corner of Grants Lake Boulevard. A small triangle was taken for the widening of 6, which then would reduce the acreage by a small amount. So it's not the flat acreage that you've recited. It would actually be a little less. It's like 113 square feet, so it's 4.76 acres versus 4.763. And again, I'm not sure if that is an issue for you or not.
We did look at everything, but since we've had to essentially city initiate this and the plat is our best guide for it, we feel comfortable with what we have, Jay.
Okay. Well, that's all I had then. Thank you.
Okay, Carl, do you have any questions, Carl?
Yes, you're good. Yes, of course. Go, Exhibit C, the recorded plat.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, first of all of this is served by city public utilities, right? Water, sanitary.
Correct.
But I only see one easement in this whole property, and that's a water line easement. And it just goes around the perimeter. And so how all of these townhouses or whatever they're, I guess townhouses, don't they all have a separate water meter and a separate tap?
So the situation is just like in section 1, where there is each townhouse is actually, Doug, do you want to just take this, explain it?
Sure.
Work exactly.
Carl,
Yeah.
This is the exact same duplicate that we kind of went over with y'all pretty heavily, where it is the system. It's not how we would start something today on a new plat, but this is all essentially master metered for the whole complex, more like an apartment complex would be, even though these are fee simple townhome lots. So you've got utilities with the right of way and you've got the easement, but that's everything there is right now. And just like we said last year, this is not going to create or change any easements or anything. It's going to be as is, just like the section 1. And that's been confirmed by the Public Works folks that
So
each individual doesn't have an easement to it.
do they each have an individual meter?
No.
They're all-
No, this is master meter.
Water and sanitary is master metered.
Right.
Yes.
Or
Right.
water is based off of that. So that's the only reason there's a water line easement, right? And to get to the fire hydrants.
Right. The fire was the one that drove that back when. Yes, sir.
And so they just all pay the same, divide the bill every month, I guess?
I don't know the specifics, but right, it's the
All right.
same as section 1. Yes, sir.
All right, but so the city's getting its share. That's all I'm concerned.
Yes, the city is getting their share. Yes.
All right, let me make sure. On unit 5, just a very, you didn't point out, you don't have the arrows for the entrance on this document. You got
On the plat,
on the plat, you got unit entrance, there's a legend. But if you look,
and there's not any on there. Yes, I see that. But the plat is already recorded, so
oh, this was on the, that's a, so they don't have any access. They can't get in. All right. By the way, when did you say this tract was annexed into the city?
1991.
I don't know that this plat is correct.
The plat is from 1982, and they were annexed in 1991.
But when the plat was done in, what did you say, 82?
82?
The county should have approved this.
Yes.
Where's it approved by the county? Except for the clerk's recording. The only people that signed this plat was the city, the mayor and the city secretary and the planning and zoning, or planning commission chairman. Fort Bend County, except for the recording, I can't find any place they approved this plat. And it was in the county at the time.
Well, I don't know what to say to that because this is what was recorded.
Again, Carl, we can't litigate this plat, sir.
I'm just making a point so you won't make sure that it doesn't happen again. So
Well,
what
that's
kind of
good.
plat?
You bet. No, that's strange. I agree. Not the way we would do it.
Anyhow, and in the dedicatory language, the fourth paragraph, further, we do hereby certify that we are the owners of all property immediately adjacent to the boundaries of the attached plat where building setback lines or public utility easements are to be established outside the boundaries of the attached plat. And do hereby make and establish all building setback lines, for public utility easements shown in adjacent acreage. So is that where the sanitary line is, or what? I mean, what is that purpose? What's going in there?
So this plat has already been recorded. We cannot change it. I don't know what you're asking because we're
Utility
the
lines.
PD. So we can't get into the nitty gritty of the plat because it's already been recorded.
All right, let me ask it another way. Where is the sanitary line, the master sanitary line that serves this? Is it in those, was it intended to be in those outside easements? I don't know.
It's our understanding it's with the right of way, with the street.
I don't even know why they put that language in there then, but you know
It was
me.
Well,
1982.
Yeah,
They kind of did what they wanted.
I was 12 years old and I can't speak to it. So, but it's not the way we would do it today.
You'll go to hell for lying, Doug. Be careful.
That's an accurate statement.
All right. Yeah, that plat needed some work. Exhibit D,
Yes.
you said you're gonna change that to 10 foot.
8 to 10, yes.
All right. Under your 4-foot masonry, no, not that, I mean, the property line,
Mm-hmm.
you've got it marked in red on 2 sides, but the other one, you call out, it's a,
It's
8
overlapped with the green wood fence.
well, I think that's misleading because it's only 2 sides to the property line. Why can't you add the green fence inside of the red line to get the property line there to make it complete?
Okay, I can make that adjustment.
I mean, then it all matches up.
Yeah, so yeah, I can
You
switch.
got the property line outside of the blue fence, which is where it's supposed to be.
Yes, yeah, there's a landscape buffer there. Mhm.
Yeah, and so you just need to jockey that in, okay? And on Exhibit E,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with your legend except that in the 4-foot concrete private sidewalk, that color doesn't match the color on your exhibit.
Okay,
So I can't find that color, so I don't know where the 4-foot sidewalk is. I mean, I know where it is. Somebody else may. You agree? You agree with me?
no, yeah, I heard you. Yeah, make it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Which, on this exhibit F2, I didn't catch, you had, let me back up to the word. Which, you said building 7, then you added 2 more, didn't you? That this brick wall?
Yes, so if you look at the recorded plat, Exhibit C, you can see buildings number 1 and number 4 also only have 1 row of houses.
1.
Buildings with only 1 row of units need to comply with the photo taken above.
Okay, so are you gonna add that?
Well, we have it covered with only 1 row of units rather than the specific number, just in case something in the future might change.
But you said the rear of building 7.
Because the photo is taken of building 7.
Well,
I the photo of the back of each building.
And as labeled on Exhibit C, you recorded plat. So why wouldn't you add 7, 1, and 4? Because you're referring to the recorded plat.
Because I don't have pictures of all 3 of them, I only have the picture of building 7.
I still don't think it matters if you're trying to depict that same thing. I don't think you've got a picture of 1. That's all you need. But if you're going to call it out, it's only building 7. So nowhere does it reference 1 and 4.
It says built at the first line, it says buildings with only 1 row of units.
Okay, I still don't know why you can't add 1 and 4, but that would be real clear.
Could you add 1 and 4 in parentheses, 1, 4, 7, or after that?
Yeah,
to be
yeah, I'll do that.
All right. That's all I got.
Okay, I think that's everyone, and I don't have anything to add. Would someone like to make a motion? Carl, do you want to make the motion since you're the one that had the changes?
You're supposed to wrote all that down so you could.
Got it right here, but
I don't know what all I said now. Move to make the recommendation of mayor and council with all the comments I made. I think the public utilities, I think it needs to be, I don't know, did you spell it out in your write-up that these are all, what did you say, Doug, was it's master metered? Have we referred to that anywhere?
That's. Go ahead,
That
Doug.
won't be part of the PD. We're doing this just like the section 1.
All right. come back to bite you, don't blame me. Even though the plat's wrong, we'll not worry about that.
Yeah, we can't change the plat. We're just making a motion
All right.
based on the zoning. But
Well,
there were some, on Exhibit D, you had some adjustments, right?
Yes, you made the 10-foot corrections, and then I need the property line outlined outside of the green and the green line. That's, yeah.
Mhm.
We need to change, in the legend, change the color to match the sidewalks, or change the sidewalks to match the legend color.
And that would be on Exhibit E.
Yes.
And then in F2, add buildings 1, 4, and 7 in parentheses. Or
Yeah.
units with one
F2.
row.
Right. That's it.
Okay.
That's the motion. Make those corrections.
Okay, and with those corrections, you're making a motion that we approve.
The recommendation to mayor and council.
Okay, okay.
Second?
Thank you. So motion's been made by Commissioner Stevens, seconded by Commissioner Watley. Is there anyone that would like to discuss any discussion? I'm scrolling through to see. I don't see any hands up, so we can go ahead and vote.
Passes unanimously.
Moving on to item 5, reports. 5A, Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison Report for the March 17th meeting. Who would that be?
That would be me. Not much specific to P&Z. However, one note of interest, they are a couple of them. They appointed a health authority for the city of Sugar Land to serve for a 2-year term. And then 2, there was a first, and there was ordinance to establishing the municipal court in Sugar Land as a municipal court of record, which they went on to describe as pretty important. I don't have many notes there, and I'm sure if anybody's interested, they could listen to the meeting. But otherwise, it was pretty straightforward. Nothing on the consent agenda affected us, and we were all sitting an aisle apart and 6 feet apart and these things. It was an early version of what we're doing now, except it was in the same room and nobody had any masks on. So anyway, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Simeon. The April meetings, April 17th and 21st. Who would that be?
That was me. And similar to Dan, not too much that was specifically related to planning and zoning. They did postpone the May elections, and then there were a number of finance actions, issuance of bonds, that sort of thing. And then the second meeting in April, it was more or less the Jennifer Brown show. Again, more bond issuance and approval of financial policies. So pretty straightforward again.
Okay, thank you. How about the May 5th meeting?
The May 5th meeting was me, and there were 2 items that were considered and voted on pertinent to P&Z. One was first consideration of the ordinance to grant a conditional use permit for the automotive change facility located on 0.828 acres at the intersection of Highway 6 and Settlers Way. We had obviously discussed that and passed it along to council. That was not controversial. It passed 7-0. The other item, however, was extremely controversial, and there was a very lengthy discussion, so I wanted to make a few points about that. And that was the first consideration of the ordinance pertaining to the zoning change from BO to PD for the 0.7906 acres of land located at the southeast corner of Lake Point Parkway and Creek Bend Drive. So these were the live-work units that we had lengthy discussions on. I thought a couple things would be pertinent to mention. There were several changes that were made by the applicant after we voted our recommendation. The applicant held other meetings with the Urban Homes HOA, which, as you may remember from our meeting, there was some controversy about whether all of the HOAs had been conducted. They had modified the proposed land use to only allow professional offices. They significantly decreased the permitted non-residential space within each townhome. They did some add-ons for parking spaces and added that each townhome would be deed restricted for the residents to park in the garages and not on the street. Staff provided feedback on traffic incidents. There had been no complaints related to parking in the last 6 months. There were several letters from concerned residents that were read into the record. Mayor Zimmerman, who is a Lake Point resident, went on the record to, in his words, dispel some of the misinformation contained in the comments. He said that the neighborhood has never had garbage problems or public safety issues, and that the parking issues have largely subsided. I think, if I recollect correctly, the discussion on this point lasted about an hour, and it did not actually look like the first consideration was going to pass. In fact, there was a motion to table it that was made, and then after some discussion among the council, it was suggested that council could go ahead and approve the first consideration, but basically communicate to the applicant that if the concerns that were raised at that meeting were not addressed, that it would be unlikely that a second consideration would be passed. So the motion to table was withdrawn, and then the motion to approve the first consideration was voted on, and it passed 5-2. So it's unclear to me where this will end up. I guess we'll have to stay tuned and see. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like most of those changes were in place when we made our vote. Is there anything?
Madam Chair, this is Doug. Just to clarify, the materials council saw were the exact materials that P&Z voted on at their consideration and action. They were changed between your public hearing at P&Z and the consideration and action that was a little bit later down the road. Just wanted to clarify, council did not, and the neighborhood meeting, the additional one happened between your public hearing meeting and your consideration and action meeting. So I just want to make sure we had that for the record here. But it is not scheduled for a second read at this time. Staff will be working with the applicant, so we don't have an update beyond that.
Yeah, and Doug, I apologize, and thank you for correcting that. And I did apparently hear that incorrectly, because I thought those 5 points that I raised that they were saying took place after we had considered it. And I didn't think that when we had considered it, they'd actually had that meeting with the other HOA either. So if I stated that incorrectly, I apologize.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure we had clarified. Yes, sir.
Right, I agree. I just wanted to make sure it was on the record correctly. So thank you, Matt. Item B, city staff report.
Just real quickly, we will be looking at your meeting on the Thursday, the 28th. Right now we have public hearings scheduled for the Hill District, some zoning, looking at 2 elements, and y'all had a workshop back at the beginning, I believe, of March it was, and one of them will be looking at rezoning some land that was originally part of the Hill neighborhood but never got put into the Hill District. So part of it is a rezoning of land itself. The other public hearing element will be looking at some modifications to the Hill District zoning in the code that actually applies. So one of them is regulations, and one of them is actual property zoning itself. So that will be coming forward. I believe that will be discussion and direction afterward, not a decision that evening, but those are scheduled. And then we have a workshop anticipated with one of the tracks in Imperial off of Highway 6. This is a commercial-only tract, a small tract that's near the Crown Garden entrance there on Highway 6. So we'll be providing a little update with it, and then the applicant will have a chance to go over their commercial PD for that. So it's fairly small-scale commercial site there. That's all we have right now.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And that would be Commissioner Landine. Do I hear a second?
Looks like Commissioner K-9 seconded.
Okay. He's having a hard time with his microphone. Okay. So second, there we go, by Commissioner K-9. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm not seeing any, so we will now adjourn.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, guys.